The city was quiet when Grayson Vale returned to his penthouse at 2 a.m, the kind of quiet that only Manhattan allowed in winter. Snow clung to the edges of the terrace glass, the skyline muted behind a thin veil of white. After a 14-hour flight from Seoul and a week of negotiations that drained even a man like him, he expected silence, darkness, and the familiar emptiness of a home too large for one person. But the moment he stepped inside, something felt off. A soft light glowed from down the hall. His bedroom light. Grayson frowned. No one entered his private suite. Not staff, not security, not even friends. He dropped his Mont Blanc pen and travel folder onto the marble counter and walked slowly toward the door, every instinct sharpened. As he pushed it open, the world tilted. A woman lay curled on his bed, her arms wrapped around a tiny infant pressed against her chest. Her hair fell in tangled waves across his pillow, her clothes damp, her hands trembling even in sleep. A baby bottle rolled near her elbow, half filled, as if she'd fed the child moments before passing out from sheer exhaustion. Grayson took one step closer and stopped cold. It was Harper Ellington, the girl he once knew. The girl who vanished from his life without warning, the girl he searched for until grief convinced him she was gone forever. Now she was in his room, holding a baby. Her breathing was uneven, and there were faint tear marks dried along her cheeks. The infant stirred weakly, letting out a fragile sound that stabbed straight into Grayson's chest. His voice came out low, stunned. "Harper, what happened to you?" The old housekeeper whispered from behind him. "She arrived hours ago, Mr. Vale. She said she had nowhere else to go." Heat tightened in his chest. Fear, anger, confusion, all crashing at once. Because Harper Ellington didn't run to people. Not unless she was running from something. Grayson stepped closer, reaching toward the baby, and froze as he noticed the hospital bracelet still on Harper's wrist. It wasn't her name on it. It wasn't her baby. And that was only the first shock of the night. Harper Ellington hadn't cried in years, at least not the kind of tears that came from the soul breaking a little at a time. She used to be sunshine tucked inside a girl. Gentle, warm, quiet, but hopeful. The kind of person who remembered everyone's birthday and stayed late at work because a frightened patient needed reassurance. But life had a way of sanding people down, and Harper, at only 27, felt like she had lived 3 lifetimes already. Her childhood had been a string of hospital rooms, old photographs, and unanswered questions. A mother gone too soon. A father who vanished without a trace. Foster homes that blurred together. Harper learned early that stability was something other people received, not her. So when Callum Rhodes, successful, charismatic, polished, like a man sculpted from ambition, chose her, Harper mistook attention for safety. Love, she believed, was something she had to earn. And she earned it the best she could. She worked double shifts at the hospital as a phlebotomist, quietly supporting Callum's rise, cutting coupons so he wouldn't see the strain, smiling even when he forgot anniversaries or came home smelling of whiskey and perfume that wasn't hers. She held on to the hope that once he stabilized his career, once his company took off, once the chaos settled, maybe she would matter again. But instead, Callum traded her in for Sloane Winslow, a woman dipped in gold and venom. Harper became something disposable, something inconvenient, something that embarrassed them both simply by existing. And when she became pregnant, everything collapsed. The betrayal wasn't loud, it was quiet. Surgical. Callum claiming the baby wasn't his. Sloane whispering rumors that Harper was unstable. The hospital where Harper worked, suspending her pending review. Her bank account frozen due to administrative error. Piece by piece, her life disintegrated. And then came the night that changed everything. The night a crying infant was placed in her arms at the hospital, an emergency situation, a mix-up, chaos in the NICU, and before she could even process what was happening, accusations were hurled, security was called, and Harper found herself shoved into the cold with a baby that wasn't hers. Yet clung to her like she was the only warmth left in the world. She ran. She didn't know where she was going. She only knew she couldn't go back. Not to Callum, not to Sloane, not to the hospital that abandoned her, not to the city that swallowed people whole. And her feet numb, shaking, took her to the only place her heart remembered as safe. Grayson Vale's building. She didn't know why. She hadn't seen him in years, not since childhood, not since before memory fractured like glass. But something in her bones whispered his name. something old, something forgotten. She didn't plan to enter his penthouse. She didn't even know how the doorman let her through. All she remembered was the warmth of the room, the softness of the bed, the baby's tiny heartbeat against her chest. And then everything went black. Now, lying unconscious in Grayson's world of glass and power, Harper looked small, fragile, almost breakable. But beneath the exhaustion, beneath the grief, beneath the dirt of the night she barely survived, there was a spark. A spark Grayson recognized instantly. Because he had seen it once, in a girl he never truly forgot. And that spark was about to set everything on fire. The penthouse at Hudson Yards was nothing like the world Harper came from. Grayson Vale had built his empire in silence. And this home reflected that same deliberate restraint, the kind of luxury that didn't need to announce itself. Floor-to-ceiling windows stretched across the entire north wall, offering an unobstructed view of Manhattan glittering under fresh snow. The city looked peaceful from up here, almost gentle, as if all its cruelty couldn't reach the 68th floor. The living room glowed with warm, ambient light. Soft jazz hummed from hidden speakers, barely audible beneath the hum of the heating system. A Steinway piano rested near the glass, its glossy surface catching the reflection of the skyline. A wall-length bookshelf displayed first editions, antique globes, and a few framed photographs Grayson never discussed. Everything was meticulously arranged: the Italian leather sofa, the crystal decanters, the understated art worth millions. It was a world built on control. Yet right now, it felt anything but controlled. A baby carrier sat crooked on the rug. A tiny sock had fallen near the glass coffee table. Harper's torn tote bag lay slumped against the marble island, its contents spilled formula packets, a half-empty water bottle, and a hospital ID badge bent at the edges. It was the first time Grayson had ever seen this penthouse look lived in. Human, vulnerable, he walked quietly through the space, taking in the details he had never imagined would exist in his sanctuary. His home had always been a fortress of solitude, a place to retreat from the world's noise. But tonight, it felt like the epicenter of something he hadn't felt in years, something dangerous, something that stirred old pieces of him he thought had died. The snow continued to fall outside, turning the city into a watercolor painting. Streetlights blurred into soft halos. Sirens sounded distant, like echoes from another universe. Harper still slept in his bedroom, the fragile infant tucked against her chest. Grayson stood in the hallway, running a hand through his hair, trying to piece together how she ended up here, in his space, in his life again. The housekeeper, Mrs. Alden, watched him carefully from the kitchen doorway. She was trembling when she arrived, she said softly, barely standing, wouldn't speak. "I didn't think you'd mind, sir." She looked lost. Lost. The words settled heavily. Harper Ellington didn't come to people unless the world pushed her to the edge. And from the looks of her, it hadn't just pushed, it had thrown her. Grayson stepped toward the bedroom door again, stopping himself before opening it. Instead, he looked at the small bottle on the nightstand. The milk was watery, as if she'd tried to make it stretch, a detail that punched him in the gut. The man who controlled billion-dollar companies suddenly felt helpless in his own home. "How long has she been here?" he asked. "About 5 hours," Mrs. Alden replied. She kept whispering she was sorry, that she wasn't supposed to be here. Grayson stared at the closed door, his jaw tightening. Harper didn't show up here by choice. She showed up because she had nowhere left to go. And that meant someone had driven her to that brink. Someone who was very likely still looking for her. As he exhaled, lights from the neighboring skyscraper flickered, an unexpected signal that made the hair on his arms rise. Something was coming, something he hadn't prepared for. Sloane Winslow had a face made for magazine covers and a heart made of polished ice. In New York's upper circles, she was known as the woman who could walk into any room and tilt its balance without lifting a finger. Everything about her was calculated, from her perfectly symmetrical smile to the soft waves of her caramel blonde hair that moved like a curtain choreographed for the camera. People liked to call her magnetic, but the truth was simpler. Sloane had mastered the art of making others feel inferior. Her life had been curated, her image sculpted, her rise ruthless. Born into old money that was quietly crumbling beneath decades of poor decisions, Sloane grew up with a mother obsessed with status and a father obsessed with keeping financial failure a secret. By the time she was 22, Sloane learned the most important lesson of her life. Survival depended on attaching herself to someone with more power than she had. Enter Callum Rhodes. To everyone else, Callum was the charismatic CEO with a polished reputation. To Sloane, he was a man ripe for molding, a man desperate to stay above water in a world that demanded perfection. She studied him like a project, mirrored his ambitions, validated his ego, fed his insecurities. It didn't take long before she became his shadow, his advisor, his addiction. It wasn't love, it was strategy. And Harper Ellington? She was simply collateral damage. Harper represented everything Sloane despised: sincerity, humility, quiet resilience. Harper didn't compete. Harper didn't claw her way to attention. Harper existed, and somehow that offended Sloane on a cellular level. So when Callum drifted toward Harper out of genuine affection, Sloane didn't see a romance, she saw an obstacle. Removing Harper was quick work. A rumor here, a suggestion there, a concerned friend calling the hospital director, an anonymous tip sent to a journalism intern hungry for gossip. It didn't take much to paint Harper as unstable. Not when the world already believed that women without wealth should stay in their place. But then the baby changed everything. Sloane hadn't expected the situation at the hospital to spiral the way it did. She hadn't expected a mix-up, a missing file, a nurse screaming down the hallway, and she definitely hadn't expected Harper to leave the building, holding a child that wasn't hers. But in the moment, Sloane saw opportunity. If Harper disappeared under the weight of scandal, Callum would finally be hers completely. Yet days passed. Harper did not return. The hospital kept quiet. Callum grew restless. And Sloane began to feel something she hadn't felt in years. Fear. Not fear of Harper, but fear of what Callum might do if the truth ever surfaced. Because Sloane knew something no one else did. The baby wasn't Harper's. The baby wasn't Callum's. The baby wasn't even supposed to be alive. It was the one mistake Sloane couldn't bury. The one loose thread she couldn't cut. So when Callum stormed into her apartment that night, throwing his jacket across the sofa, shouting that Harper had vanished like a criminal, Sloane smiled sweetly and pretended to be concerned. She cupped his face, kissed his cheek, told him Harper would come crawling back. But when Callum walked away, Sloane's smile fell. Because earlier that day, Sloane had received a text from an unknown number, a photo of Harper's torn tote bag, a hospital bracelet, a baby swaddled in a blanket with a logo she recognized, and a message that chilled her blood. "You're losing control." Sloane stared at the screen, hands trembling. Only one person in New York had enough power to send that warning: Grayson Vale. And if he knew Harper was missing, he might already know who was responsible. Morning arrived like a slap to the face. The soft gray light filtered through the penthouse windows, touching the edges of the city as if afraid to disturb it. Harper sat at the kitchen island, wrapped in a blanket Mrs. Alden had draped over her shoulders. The baby slept in a borrowed bassinet nearby, his breathing fragile, his fingers curled like petals. Harper's eyes were swollen, her hair unbrushed, her entire body stiff from exhaustion. Grayson watched from across the marble counter, his expression unreadable. There were questions he wanted to ask, needed to ask, but every time he looked at Harper, holding herself together by sheer force of will, he swallowed them. She had been through enough. But the peace didn't last. His phone vibrated. Once, twice, then nonstop. Grayson's jaw tightened. He checked the notifications, and the blood in his veins turned to ice. Every major New York outlet had posted the same headline: Callum Rhodes' ex-wife suspected of kidnapping infant from hospital. Harper Ellington, missing with baby. Police investigating possible abduction. A photo accompanied the articles, a blurry image of Harper running into the cold night, the infant pressed against her chest. She looked terrified, desperate, unhinged. Exactly the picture Sloane needed the world to see. Harper noticed the way Grayson's hand froze around the phone. What is it?" she whispered, voice barely holding together. He didn't want to show her. But lying to Harper had never been an option. He turned the screen toward her. Her face drained of color. She reached out with shaking hands, scrolling through headline after headline, each twisted version of the truth more horrifying than the last. "No," Harper whispered. "No, I didn't. This isn't Grayson. I didn't take him. The nurse handed him to me. They told me to. I didn't." Her voice cracked. She covered her mouth, trying to swallow the sob, forcing its way up her throat. The baby stirred in the bassinet, sensing her distress. Mrs. Alden rushed to Harper's side, but Harper flinched back as if she didn't deserve comfort. "This is Sloane," Grayson muttered, pacing. "She's framing you. This entire story has her fingerprints all over it." Harper buried her face in her hands. "They'll arrest me. They'll take him away. God, Grayson, I didn't even want to leave the hospital. They forced me out. I didn't know where else to go." Grayson stopped pacing and crouched in front of her. "You did the only thing you could. You kept him safe. That matters." But for the first time, Harper shook her head. "No, it doesn't. They'll never believe me." Before Grayson could reassure her, the penthouse intercom buzzed sharply. A voice crackled through. "Mr. Vale, we have visitors requesting immediate entry. They say it's urgent." Grayson stood. "Who is it?" A pause. Then, "Detectives. NYPD." Harper went completely still. Mrs. Alden squeezed her hand. Grayson's eyes darkened with something fierce and dangerous. He pressed the intercom button. "Nobody comes up until I authorize it." But the doorman's voice broke in, tense and frantic. "Sir, there's more. The media is gathering outside. Someone tipped them off." Harper's breath caught. "Oh God, they're here for me. Everyone." Grayson looked toward the front door, his posture shifting into something cold and protective. Because the storm wasn't coming. It had arrived. Harper had never felt fear like this, not when she was shuffled between foster homes as a child, not when she worked overnight shifts handling medical emergencies, not even the day Callum told her she wasn't enough. But this? The sound of police officers downstairs, the echo of news vans outside, the realization that her name was being dragged across every screen in New York? This was terror in its purest form. Her chest tightened as she paced the living room, clutching the edge of the blanket around her shoulders. Every shadow felt like a threat. Every sound made her flinch. The world outside Grayson's windows felt so close, like it was pressing its weight against the glass, trying to crush her. "I can't breathe," she whispered, one hand over her mouth. "Oh God, I can't breathe." Mrs. Alden tried to guide her to the sofa, but Harper stumbled back. "Don't, please, don't touch me. I don't want to fall apart. If I fall apart, I won't be able to stop." Her voice trembled so violently the words almost broke. Grayson watched from a few feet away, jaw locked, fists clenched. He wasn't used to this. He commanded boardrooms. He negotiated with world leaders. He rebuilt companies from the ashes, but none of those skills meant anything here. Not when the girl who once saved his life with nothing but kindness was collapsing in front of him. "Harper," he said gently, approaching her. "Look at me." She tried. Failed. Tried again. When her eyes finally lifted, Grayson felt something twist inside him, a deep, old ache he thought he'd buried. "This is my fault," she whispered. "I shouldn't have come here. I shouldn't have taken him. I shouldn't have lived. Everything I touch falls apart." "Stop," Grayson said sharply. She recoiled as if struck. He softened immediately. "I didn't mean it like that. I mean, Harper, none of this is your fault." But Harper shook her head, tears spilling again. "They're going to take him away from me. They're going to lock me up. Callum will tell them I'm unstable. Sloane will have evidence. The hospital already thinks I snapped. And the baby deserves someone better than a woman who can't even keep her life together." The baby, as if understanding her pain, began to cry. Harper's heart cracked. She rushed to him, lifting him into her arms, rocking him desperately. "I'm sorry," she whispered into his tiny ear. "I'm so sorry." Grayson stepped closer. "Harper, let me help you. Whatever this is, you don't have to fight it alone." She laughed, a small, broken sound. "Help me? Grayson, the entire city thinks I'm a kidnapper. And those detectives downstairs, they're here because someone told them I'm dangerous." "That someone," Grayson said through his teeth, "is Sloane." Harper clutched the baby tighter, her legs shaking. She sank onto the couch, curling around the infant as if he were the last piece of warmth she had left. Her breaths grew rapid and shallow, panic swelling until she felt she might drown. "I can't do this," she said. "I can't survive this again." When the world turns on you, you don't get back up, you just disappear. Grayson crouched in front of her, his hand hovering near hers, not touching, just present. "You're not disappearing. Not on my watch. But Harper didn't hear him. She didn't hear anything until a sharp knock rattled the penthouse door. Detectives' voices echoed through the hallway. "Mr. Vale, open the door. We have a warrant." Harper froze. Her fingers tightened around the baby. Grayson rose slowly, shoulders squared, eyes turning into cold steel. Because now it wasn't just fear in the room. It was war. Grayson didn't open the door. Not immediately. He stood there, still as stone, while the detectives' voices bounced off the sleek marble floors. Harper's breath hitched. She held the baby so close, his tiny cheek was pressed into her collarbone, her fingers trembling against his blanket. The room felt too small, too loud, too bright. "Grayson," she whispered, "they're going to take him. Please don't let them take him." He turned to her, and something in his expression shifted, something that made the air thicken. Not anger, not panic, something colder, older, a version of Grayson that belonged to boardrooms where billions were on the line. "Harper," he said quietly, "I need you to trust me." Her throat tightened. "I don't have anyone else to trust." But before he could answer, his second phone, the private one nobody had the number to, buzzed on the counter. Grayson glanced at the caller ID and felt his jaw clench. The hospital director. He stepped into the hallway, answering sharply. "This better be important." On the other end, the director's voice quivered. "Mr. Vale, we reviewed the security footage. There's been a situation." Grayson's grip on the phone tightened. "What kind of situation?" "A nurse switched the ID tags," the director whispered. "And someone deleted the original birth record from the database. We didn't realize it until the infant's biological mother arrived searching for him." Grayson's blood chilled. "Are you telling me Harper didn't take this child?" "No," the director said. "She was handed the wrong baby during the emergency transfer. Whoever switched the tags did it deliberately." A quiet, deadly silence stretched between them. "Do you know who?" Grayson asked. The director swallowed audibly. "Mr. Vale, the person who accessed the maternity ward logs and the ID terminals was—" A loud bang erupted at the front door. "Detectives again." Grayson's voice dropped to a lethal whisper. "Say it." The director exhaled shakily. "Sloan Winslow." The world sharpened into a single, brutal point. Grayson hung up. He walked back toward Harper, whose eyes searched his face in terror. "What's happening? What did they say?" Grayson knelt in front of her, his voice firm but gentle. "Harper, you didn't take the wrong baby. They gave you the wrong baby." Her lips parted. "Gave? I don't understand." "You were framed," he said, "and not just framed, set up with precision." Harper felt the room tilt. Why would anyone use a baby like that? Grayson didn't answer, not because he didn't know, but because the truth was darker than she could imagine. Another bang. This time accompanied by a sharp, "Open up, NYPD." Harper flinched violently, curling around the baby. "Grayson, they'll arrest me. They'll take him to foster care. Please, please don't let them." He reached for her hands, steadying them. "They're not taking anyone." "But you don't understand," Harper cried. "I'm nobody. They won't listen to me." "Harper," he said, his voice a low, steady anchor. "You're not nobody. Not anymore." She stared at him, breath shaking. Something flashed in his eyes, something she didn't recognize, something protective, something dangerous. Then Grayson stood and walked toward the door. Not to open it, to lock the second deadbolt. The detectives pounded harder. "Mr. Vale, you're obstructing an investigation." Grayson picked up a folder from his desk, the one with the seal of the state attorney's office. Inside was a document powerful enough to silence any cop in Manhattan. He had waited years to use it. He hadn't expected the reason to be Harper. He approached the door, voice calm, controlled, lethal. "Detectives," he said, "before you enter my home, you should know one thing." The pounding stopped. Grayson slid the document under the door. "Read that," he said, "and then decide if you still want to come inside." Harper stared at him, heart pounding. What did you just give them?" she whispered. Grayson turned toward her slowly, eyes dark as midnight. "The truth," he said, "and it changes everything." For the first time in days, Harper woke without panic, clawing through her chest. The baby slept in a crib. Mrs. Alden had sat beside the bedroom window, bathed in soft morning light. The storm outside the penthouse had quieted. New York looked washed clean, almost gentle, almost. Harper sat up slowly. Her entire body ached from stress and sleepless nights. Every muscle told the story of a woman who had been living in survival mode for too long. But today felt different. Something in the air had shifted, something inside her, too. Grayson had stayed outside her door the entire night. She knew because she heard him answer a dozen calls in hushed, controlled tones. She heard his footsteps pacing, the tension in each movement. She heard him defending her, strategizing, fighting a battle she never asked him to fight. No one had ever done that for her. When Harper stepped into the hallway, she found Grayson leaning against the kitchen counter, sleeves rolled, hair slightly messy like he hadn't slept at all. Papers and folders were spread across the marble island, along with a steaming mug of coffee he'd prepared for her. Not for himself. He looked up instantly. "How are you feeling?" Harper shrugged, pulling the blanket tighter around her shoulders. "Like someone scraped my insides with a spoon." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "You look better." She raised a brow. "This is better?" "It is," he said softly, "because yesterday you looked defeated. And today you look like you're standing up again." Harper swallowed hard. No one had ever noticed the difference. Mrs. Alden appeared with a small bag. "Mr. Vale said you needed fresh clothes, dear. I guessed your size." Harper blinked, stunned. Inside were jeans, soft sweaters, warm socks, and a simple cream coat. Beautiful, understated, nothing flashy, but it felt like being seen. After a warm shower, Harper slipped into the clothes. The woman in the mirror didn't look powerful, but she didn't look broken either. She looked alive. She stepped back into the living room, where Grayson was reviewing documents. "I don't know who I am anymore," she whispered. He looked up, eyes steady. "You're Harper Ellington. The girl who survived everything life threw at her. The girl who helped strangers before she helped herself. The girl who deserves more than this city ever gave her." Her throat tightened. "Grayson, everything is so big. Too big. I don't know how to fight people like Sloan. I don't know how to fight Callum. They have everything. Power, money, connections." Grayson closed the file and walked toward her. "They have power," he said, "but they don't have the truth, and they don't have me." She looked up at him, eyes shimmering. "Why are you helping me? After all these years?" Grayson exhaled slowly. "Because once when I was a different person, in a different world, you saved me. You didn't know it then, but you did." She frowned. "Grayson, I don't remember." "You're not supposed to," he said gently. "You were 11. I was 14. It doesn't matter now. What matters is, you're not alone. Dell." Harper felt something warm bloom in her chest, something she hadn't felt since before Callum Hope. Grayson held her gaze. "We're going to clear your name. We're going to expose what Sloan did, and we're going to find the truth about that baby." Harper's breath caught. "What if the truth is worse than the lie?" "Then we face it," Grayson said, "together." Before Harper could respond, the elevator chimed from the private lobby, 3 soft tones that didn't belong to residents or staff. Grayson's expression darkened. He stepped in front of her, protective instinct kicking in instantly. Someone was coming up. Someone who bypassed security. Someone who used a code only a handful of people in New York possessed. Harper whispered, "Grayson, who has access to your private elevator?" He stared toward the door, voice dropping to a dangerous murmur. "Only one person." The man stepping out of the private elevator was not a stranger. It was Callum Rhodes' expensive suit, polished shoes, ego first. He strode into the penthouse as if he still owned every room he had ever walked through, as if the world was merely a stage for his importance. His eyes swept the space, then landed on Harper, and he smirked. "There you are," he said. "You made quite a mess, didn't you?" Harper stiffened. Grayson moved instinctively in front of her, blocking Callum's path. "You're not welcome here." Callum scoffed. "Grayson, step aside. This is between my ex-wife and me." He raised his voice slightly, for drama's sake. "I came to offer Harper a chance to fix the situation before she destroys what little is left of her reputation." Harper felt a chill slide down her spine. "What are you talking about?" Callum withdrew a thin stack of papers, waving them casually. "A public statement. You'll sign it. It says you suffered a psychological breakdown, took the baby during a delusional episode, and that you're deeply remorseful. The detectives downstairs are more than ready to escort you to a psychiatric evaluation. But sign this, and I can reduce the damage." Harper's breath hitched. Callum always did this, offer cruelty as if it were kindness. But Grayson stepped forward, his voice like steel. "She's not signing anything." Callum laughed, triumphant. "You think you can protect her?" "The police believe my story. The hospital believes my story. Everyone believes my story." Grayson's jaw ticked. "Not for long." 18. Callum raised a brow. "And why is that?" Grayson nodded toward the window behind him. Callum turned, annoyed, and froze. Across the street, 3 skyscrapers displayed massive digital billboards. Every screen flashed the same headline, written in bold white letters over a red background. Breaking news. Rhodes Industries under investigation for evidence tampering. Hospital confirms data breach connected to Sloan Winslow. Callum's face drained of color. Harper clutched her chest. "Grayson, what did you do?" Grayson didn't take his eyes off Callum. "I told the truth, and I told it louder than they did." Callum's voice cracked. You don't have the authority. I own 30% of your company," Grayson said calmly. "Did you forget that? I've been buying shares quietly for months. And the moment Sloan touched Harper, I made sure the world saw exactly who the criminals are in this situation." Callum staggered back. "Grayson, you don't understand. This will ruin everything." "That," Grayson said, "is the point." The sound of notifications buzzed across Callum's phone like angry hornets. He looked down: board members, investors, journalists, even government contacts. The world was closing in fast. Harper stepped forward, then not hiding, not shaking, but standing tall. "You lied about me," she said softly. "You let them smear me. You tried to destroy my life because it was easier than admitting the truth." "They were verkleining." Callum swallowed. "Harper, listen." "No." Her voice was steady. "You listen. Whatever happens next, you earned it." Before Callum could respond, the penthouse intercom buzzed again. "Mr. Vale," the doorman said nervously. "Federal investigators are on their way up. They say it concerns Mr. Rhodes and Miss Winslow." Callum spun toward the elevator, panic climbing up his throat. "They can't arrest me," he whispered. "They wouldn't dare." Grayson folded his arms. "Callum, they're not here for her." Harper exhaled shakily, but this time, it wasn't fear. It was relief. The elevator dinged. The doors slid open. Federal agents stepped out, and the first words they said were, "Callum Rhodes, we need you to come with us." Callum's eyes snapped to Harper. "If you do this," he hissed, "you'll regret it." Harper met his gaze with quiet strength. "I already regretted loving you." The agents seized his arms. As they led him away, Callum shouted Sloane's name, desperate, betrayed. But Sloane wasn't coming. She had her own reckoning coming next. The days that followed felt unreal, like Harper was walking through a life she never imagined could exist. The police cleared her of every accusation. The hospital issued a formal apology, broadcast publicly. The truth spread across the city faster than the lies ever did. Harper Ellington was innocent. She had been used, manipulated, thrown into chaos by people who thought she was powerless. But Harper wasn't powerless anymore. Grayson made sure of that. The baby's real mother, an undocumented housekeeper who'd been silenced by Sloane, was found through the investigation. When Harper placed the infant back into the woman's shaking arms, there were no cameras, no press, no applause. Just a quiet moment between two mothers who had both survived something brutal. The woman cried into Harper's shoulder, thanking her in broken English. Harper held her tightly, telling her she deserved safety, too. The world saw Harper as fragile, but standing there, she had never felt stronger. Then came the press conference. Grayson didn't want her to speak if she wasn't ready. But Harper insisted. She walked onto the stage, wearing the simple cream coat Mrs. Alden bought for her. Hair pulled back, face natural. No glamour. No flash. Just truth. Microphones clicked. Cameras flashed. Harper stepped up to the podium. Hands steady. "I am not here because I'm a victim," she began. "I'm here because I survived people who thought they could break me." Her voice carried through the room, soft, steady, but unshakable. She spoke of fear, injustice, betrayal, but also of the strangers who helped her, the kindness she wasn't expecting, the strength she didn't know she possessed. She didn't name Callum. She didn't name Sloane. She didn't have to. The world already knew. After the conference, Grayson guided her backstage, his hand hovering near her back, gentle, careful, never assuming. "You were incredible," he said. Harper laughed softly. I almost threw up. I noticed, he teased. But you didn't. For the first time in a long while, Harper smiled without forcing it. The chaos settled. The city moved on. And Harper began to heal. Days turned into weeks. Grayson made space for her without ever asking for anything in return. He helped her find an attorney to rebuild her career. He introduced her to a nonprofit that hired her as a patient advocate, valuing her empathy in ways no one ever had. Harper found joy in helping people again. She found purpose. But something else grew, too quietly, slowly, like spring creeping into winter. Every time Grayson looked at her, something warm flickered in his eyes. Something Harper had never seen directed toward her with sincerity, admiration, respect, care. One evening, they stood on the terrace overlooking Manhattan. The city glittered like scattered diamonds. Harper's hair blew gently in the cold breeze. You know, she murmured, I never thought I'd get another chance at life, or at anything. Grayson turned toward her. Everyone deserves a second chance, Harper. She looked up at him. Do you? His breath hitched. I don't know if I deserve it, but I want it. Silence. Soft. Charged. He reached out slowly, giving her every chance to step back. She didn't. Their fingers intertwined, fitting as if they'd been waiting years to find each other again. Harper's voice was barely a whisper. So what happens now? Grayson smiled, quiet, genuine, full of something she finally recognized as hope. Now, he said, pulling her gently into his arms, now we start living. But just as Harper leaned into him, the terrace door swung open. Mrs. Alden stepped out, breathless. Mr. Vale Harper, there's something you need to see. They turned. It's about Sloane. Harper and Grayson followed Mrs. Alden back inside, their steps quickening when they noticed the urgency in her voice. The housekeeper held a tablet in her shaking hands. It's on the news, she said. They found her. Grayson took the tablet and pressed play. The live stream filled the screen. A familiar luxury SUV sat barricaded on a quiet street in Tribeca, red and blue sirens bouncing off its polished surface. Reporters crowded around. Police officers moved cautiously. And inside the vehicle, her hair disheveled, her eyes wild, was Sloane Winslow. Harper's breath caught. What is she doing? The reporter narrated breathlessly. Sloane Winslow has barricaded herself in her car for nearly an hour after authorities attempted to bring her in for questioning. Sources say she's refusing to cooperate and is demanding to speak with Callum Rhodes, who was taken into federal custody earlier this week. Harper felt the chill travel down her spine. Even from a screen, Sloane radiated danger. She was unraveling, uncontrolled, unhinged, unpredictable. Grayson turned off the volume. She's losing it. And desperate people make reckless decisions. Harper swallowed. Do you think she'll talk? She already has, Grayson said. Everything is pointing back to her tampering with hospital records, manipulating staff, orchestrating the baby switch. She's cornered, and she knows the only way out is to take everyone down with her. Harper hugged herself, suddenly cold. She's going to blame me. I know it. Mrs. Alden touched Harper's hand gently. Dear, she already tried that. And she failed. Grayson nodded. The difference now is the world is watching her fall apart. But Harper wasn't reassured. She had seen Sloane's cruelty up close. She knew when someone had nothing left to lose, they often struck the deepest. Just then, Grayson's phone buzzed on the counter. He glanced down and his expression hardened instantly. It's the FBI. Harper stepped closer. What do they want? He answered, Vale speaking. A stern voice replied, Mr. Vale. Sloane Winslow just requested to make a formal statement, but she refuses to talk unless Harper Ellington is present. Harper froze. Me? She claims, the agent continued, that she has information that will change everything, but she won't say a word unless Harper comes to the precinct. She's demanding it. Harper's stomach twisted. That's insane. I'm not going near her. I agree, Grayson said. She's unstable. But the agent's next words shifted the air completely. Mr. Vale, she threatened to release private medical documents and sealed evidence if we don't comply. She's cornered. There's no telling what she'll do. Harper's heart pounded. Why me? What does she want from me? The line crackled. We don't know, but she insists it's something only you can confirm. Harper backed away from the counter. No, I can't. I can't sit in a room with her. Grayson muted the call, stepped toward Harper, and took her shoulders gently. Listen to me. You don't have to do anything you're not ready for. Sloane is dangerous, but she's trapped. This is her last card. Whatever she's hiding, it's about to come out. Tears welled in Harper's eyes. What if she reveals something that turns everything upside down again? I just got my life back. Grayson brushed a thumb across her cheek. If she tries, we deal with it. You're not alone anymore. She took a shaky breath, grounding herself in his steadiness. Then she nodded. Okay, I'll go. Grayson unmuted the call. We're on our way. As he hung up, Mrs. Alden whispered, Child, are you certain? Harper straightened her shoulders. Yes, I'm tired of running. Grayson grabbed his coat, then gently wrapped Harper's cream, one around her shoulders. Together, they headed toward the elevator. But just before the doors closed, Harper's phone vibrated. Unknown number. One message. You think you know the truth, but you don't know what she took from you. Harper's blood ran cold. The precinct felt colder than the winter night outside. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, washing everything in a harsh, sterile glow. Harper stood beside Grayson as officers guided them through a maze of hallways, every step echoing off concrete floors. She clutched the sleeves of her cream coat, trying to steady the tremor in her hands. At the end of the hall, behind a thick glass window, Sloane Winslow sat in an interrogation room. She didn't look like the polished socialite the city once admired. Her hair was tangled, mascara streaked down her cheeks, and her designer blouse was wrinkled and stained, but her eyes sharp, calculating, still held the same venom. The moment she saw Harper through the glass, Sloane smirked. Why does she look proud? Harper whispered. Because she thinks she's about to win something, Grayson murmured. Let's not give her that satisfaction. An FBI agent opened the door. Miss Ellington, Mr. Vale, thank you for coming. Sloane refuses to speak unless Miss Ellington sits across from her. We'll be monitoring everything from outside. Harper hesitated. Do I have to be alone with her? No, Grayson said firmly. I'm staying with you. The agent nodded. That's fine. Let's begin. Harper entered the interrogation room first. The smell of cheap coffee and burnt dust lingered in the air. Sloane leaned back in her chair, tapping her nails against the metal table. Well, Sloane crooned. Little Harper Ellington. You clean up nicely for someone who committed a felony. Harper sat, pulse racing. Grayson positioned himself beside her, arms crossed, posture radiating authority. Cut the theatrics, Grayson said coldly. Say what you need to say. Sloane tilted her head, studying Harper with unsettling delight. It must be so confusing, Harper. 1 minute you're holding a baby like he's your purpose in life, and the next... She trailed off, eyes glittering. You find out he never belonged to you at all. End quote. Harper stiffened. He was never mine. I know that. And I gave him back. Did you? Sloane whispered. Did you really? Harper frowned. What is that supposed to mean? Sloane leaned forward. Tell me, Harper, do you remember the night you miscarried? The room froze. Grayson's eyes snapped to Harper, confused, startled. Harper went pale. What? What are you talking about? Oh, come on. Don't play innocent, Sloane sneered. You really don't remember? You were pregnant with Callum's child 2 years ago. You lost it. Callum didn't bother telling anyone because it made him look bad, but you remember the hospital, don't you? Harper shook her head violently. No, that never happened. I would remember something like that. Would you? Sloane said softly. Trauma is slippery. Harper's breathing quickened. The walls felt too close. Grayson slammed a hand on the table. Enough. Stop trying to manipulate her. Has ever won it. Oh, sweetheart, Sloane purred, eyes never leaving Harper. I'm not manipulating her. I'm reminding her. Harper felt her vision blur. Her hands trembled against the cold metal. There were flashes, hospital lights, a gurney, Callum shouting at a nurse, but she didn't know if they were memories or tricks of panic. Sloane leaned even closer. Do you know why Callum hated you so much, Harper? Because the baby you lost wasn't his. Harper's breath hitched sharply. What? Grayson stood abruptly. We're done here. But Sloane laughed a chilling, triumphant sound. Of course you're done. That's what Harper does. She runs from the truth. The door flew open as the FBI agents rushed in. Enough, Sloane. You're done. Sloane smirked at Harper one last time. You think you know who you are. she whispered. But you're standing on a lie. Harper staggered to her feet, heart pounding so violently she could barely hear anything else. Grayson grabbed her shoulders. Harper, breathe. Don't listen to her. But Harper couldn't breathe. Because for the first time, she wasn't sure Sloane was lying. Harper didn't remember leaving the interrogation room. She didn't remember walking down the hallway, or the fluorescent lights flickering above her, or the agents whispering into radios. All she remembered was the sound of Sloane's voice, slippery, poisonous, curling around her like smoke she couldn't escape. You were pregnant. You lost the baby. And it wasn't Callum's. The words looped in her mind, jagged, violent. She stood outside the precinct doors, gripping the cold metal railing as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. Snow fell around her in soft flakes, dissolving the moment they touched her skin. She barely felt it. Her pulse pounded in her ears, drowning out the city noise. Grayson stepped beside her, worry etched across his face. Harper, look at me. She couldn't. Her throat was too tight to speak, her mind too loud to think. He touched her elbow gently. She lied. It's what she does. Harper shook her head slowly. I don't know. I don't know anymore. Harper, there are pieces missing, she whispered. Pieces of my life I can't explain. Things I told myself were nightmares, or stress, or dreams. But what if they weren't? What if something happened and I blocked it out? Grayson inhaled sharply, his expression shifting, softening, then tightening with something protective. Trauma warps memory. That doesn't make her version the truth. But what if it is? Harper whispered. A taxi honked nearby. A dog barked. People passed by without noticing her unraveling in real time. Harper felt like a ghost drifting through a city that never once cared she existed. She backed away from Grayson. I need space. You don't, he said softly, stepping forward. What you need is someone who won't let your past swallow you whole. Her voice cracked. But the past is swallowing me, and I don't even know what's real. A sudden flash, bright and violent, hit her mind. Hospital lights. A cold metal table. Callum yelling at someone. Her own voice begging, please, don't let him take my baby, please. She gasped, stumbling. Grayson caught her before she hit the concrete. Harper! His voice frayed with panic. What did you see? She clutched his coat, trembling. A memory. Of what? I don't know, she whispered. But it felt real. Grayson helped her to a bench near the precinct entrance. Harper pressed her palms to her temples, as if she could push the shattered pieces of her mind back into place. I don't understand, she said. Why would Callum keep something like that from me? Why didn't I remember? What happened that night? Grayson crouched in front of her. We're going to find out. Every detail. Every truth Sloane tried to bury. Harper looked at him, then really looked at him. His eyes were steady, unwavering, as if he'd tear apart the world brick by brick if it meant protecting her. But fear still gripped her chest. What if I don't like what we find? Then, Grayson said gently, we face it together. I was. For a moment, she let herself lean into his touch, his steadiness grounding the chaos inside her. The snow fell harder, coating the city in white. Harper closed her eyes, trying to breathe through the storm inside her. But then her phone buzzed. A single new message. From the same unknown number as before. This time, it included a photo. A hospital bracelet. Her name, her date of birth, and one word written in red ink across the label. Mother. Harper's heart stopped. Harper stared at the photo as if it were a live wire. The hospital bracelet looked old, worn, edges curled, but the name printed across the faded plastic was unmistakable. Harper Ellington. Date of birth. Hers. Patient type. Maternity. Her stomach plunged. This can't be real. Someone faked it. Grayson gently took the phone from her trembling hands, zooming in on the bracelet. His brows furrowed. This barcode is from Street Matthews. They haven't used this format in almost 2 years. To the dollar. And with a weight down on the score. 2 years, she whispered. Sloane mentioned 2 years. Her breath stuttered. Grayson, I need to go to the hospital. I need answers. He didn't argue. He wrapped an arm around her shoulders, steadying her shaking frame. Then we go. A black SUV from the precinct escorted them through Manhattan traffic. Harper sat silently in the back seat, staring out the window, as memories flickered like broken film reels. Bright hospital lights, a cold room, crying, shadows, Callum's voice, shouting. But nothing fully formed. The more she tried to grasp the memories, the more they slipped away. When they reached Street Matthews, the lobby lights burned too bright. The smell of antiseptic sent a shock through her system. Her knees weakened. Grayson took her hand, grounding her. A supervisor from hospital administration met them immediately, recognizing Grayson with a nervous swallow. "Mr. Vale, Miss Ellington. We were told you might come." Harper's voice cracked. "I need access to my medical records." The supervisor hesitated. "Your files from that period are complicated." "Complicated how?" Grayson asked, voice edged with warning. The supervisor led them into a private office, closing the blinds. He logged into the hospital system, typing quickly. "Miss Ellington, according to the database, you were admitted to the maternity ward 2 years ago." Harper pressed a hand to her chest. "And?" The supervisor exhaled shakily. "And the record is flagged as restricted, accessed by only 2 people before it disappeared from our active files." Harper swallowed hard. "Who?" The supervisor turned the monitor toward them. "Access granted. Sloan Winslow." "Access granted. Callum Rhodes." Harper felt the air leave her lungs in a painful rush. Grayson leaned forward. "Pull the archived audit logs." The supervisor clicked again, hands trembling. A single PDF appeared. "This is all we found after the breach." Harper forced herself to look. Admission. Abdominal trauma. Presenting symptoms. Severe bleeding. Patient state, distressed. Notes, pregnancy confirmed. Fetal distress. Emergency intervention recommended. Outcome, redacted. Harper's vision blurred. I was pregnant." Grayson tightened his grip on her hand. Harper whispered, "Why didn't I know? Why didn't they tell me?" The supervisor looked pained. "The notes suggest you were sedated following the procedure. The attending doctor was replaced the next day, and the records were sealed immediately." "By Callum," Harper whispered, her voice breaking. "He made me believe I was losing my mind. He told me I was dramatic, overreacting, imagining things." She pressed her palms to her eyes. "And all along She couldn't finish. Grayson pulled her into his arms, his voice low against her hair. "You're not crazy. They did this to you." Harper sobbed quietly, grieving a child she never even knew she lost. A grief stolen from her. A truth buried so deeply she forgot how to remember. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were swollen but fierce. The baby they gave me at the hospital, was that connected?" "That's what we're about to find out," Grayson said. The supervisor cleared his throat. "There's one more thing in the archive." He clicked on another file. A DNA report. Harper's hands shook as she opened it. The screen loaded slowly, agonizingly. When the result appeared, Harper felt her entire world tilt sideways. Maternal match. 99.98%. Infant. Baby male, unknown identity. Mother. Harper Ellington. She gasped, staggering back. No, this is impossible." Grayson grabbed the desk to steady himself. "Harper, this means," the supervisor whispered, horrified, "the baby you cared for is biologically yours." Harper's scream lodged in her throat. Her baby hadn't died. He'd been stolen. Harper couldn't hear anything, not the hum of the hospital lights, not the click of keyboards, not even Grayson calling her name. All she heard was the pounding inside her chest, loud, violent, unbearable. Her knees buckled. Grayson caught her before she hit the floor, his arms strong and steady around her trembling body. "Breathe," he whispered. "Harper, breathe." But how did a mother breathe after discovering her child, her real child, had never died at all, but had been taken? Harper pressed a shaking hand to her lips. I don't understand. They told me I lost him. They told me," her voice broke, sharp and raw. "Why would they do this? Why would Sloan steal my baby?" Grayson's jaw clenched so tightly a muscle jumped in his cheek. "Because they needed a secret buried, and you were easier to break than the truth." The supervisor cleared his throat, voice shaking. "Miss Ellington, there's more." Harper's eyes snapped to him, fragile but fierce. "Show me." He opened another file footage from 2 years ago, grainy, muted, time-stamped at 2:17 a.m. Harper lay unconscious on a gurney, face pale, hair plastered to her forehead. A nurse tried to stop the bleeding while another prepared medical equipment. In the corner, Callum paced aggressively, shouting at someone off-screen. Then Sloane entered the room, calm, composed, wearing a silk coat and heels as if the world owed her stability. She approached Harper's bed, leaned down, whispered something into Harper's unconscious ear. Harper recoiled from the screen as though burned. "Turn it off." Grayson stopped the footage instantly, but the image lingered in Harper's mind like a brand. The supervisor hesitated. "There is a final file you need to see." He opened it. A delivery room camera. A newborn baby crying, swaddled in a blanket stamped with Street Matthews logo. A nurse carrying him toward the exit. And behind the nurse, Sloane following with a forged badge and a clipboard. Harper slapped a hand over her mouth. A sound escaped her, half sob, half scream. "She took him," Harper whispered. "She stole my baby from that room." Grayson knelt in front of her. "Harper, look at me. We know the truth now, and I swear on my life, we're getting him back." Harper's tears fell silently, landing on Grayson's hands. "But why? Why take him? Why make me believe I lost him?" The supervisor answered softly. "Because the infant Sloane had planned to adopt privately didn't survive the birth. She had already told Callum she was pregnant with his child. Losing that baby would have exposed everything." Harper's breath caught. "So she replaced her dead child with mine. And Callum," Grayson added, voice sharp with fury, "knew it would destroy his reputation if the truth came out, so he let her do it." Harper felt something inside her shift, a kind of grief so deep it pushed past pain into a cold, precise rage. She stood. For the first time in years, she felt tall. "I want him found," she said quietly. "I want my son back." "Nil. And you will," Grayson said. "But there's something else you need to know." He pulled a document from the supervisor's desk. "This DNA report? It wasn't sent to us by accident. Someone wanted you to see it." Harper frowned. "Who?" Before Grayson could answer, the hospital intercom crackled. "Security to the main lobby. We have an unregistered infant, abandoned in a baby carrier. Repeat, abandoned infant found." Harper's heart stopped. A baby. Abandoned. Here. Tonight. Grayson grabbed her arm, eyes wide. "Harper. It might be him." Harper didn't remember, moving only the sensation of her body launching forward on instinct, her legs carrying her down the hallway faster than she thought she could run. Grayson kept pace beside her, calling her name, but she barely heard him over the pounding of her heartbeat. Her son. Her baby. Somewhere downstairs. The elevator ride was agony. Every second stretched unbearably long. Harper's fingers dug into the handrail, her chest rising and falling in sharp, uneven breaths. Grayson placed a steadying hand on her back. "We don't know anything yet," he said gently. "We'll confirm first. Whatever happens, I'm here." But Harper could barely think. She felt the truth in her bones, in the frantic pull inside her chest. A mother knows. The elevator doors slid open to chaos. Nurses whispered in clusters. Security guards paced near the entrance. A baby's faint cries echoed through the lobby, thin and frightened like he'd been crying a long time. Harper froze. "That's him," she whispered. "Grayson, that's him." She followed the sound until she reached a small bench near the revolving doors. A baby carrier sat abandoned on the floor, a soft blue blanket tucked around a tiny body shaking from exhaustion. Harper fell to her knees. Her hands trembled as she unbuckled the straps. The baby's face was blotchy from crying, cheeks damp, fists clenched tightly, but when Harper lifted him into her arms, he quieted, just stopped. His tiny fingers curled around the fabric of her coat, his cheek pressed instinctively against her shoulder, as if his little body recognized her before his mind ever could. Harper's breath broke into a sob. "It's him," she whispered. "Oh God, Grayson, it's really him." End quote. Grayson knelt beside her, one hand on her back, his eyes glistening with something fierce and unspoken. "He's safe now. You found him." A security guard stepped closer. "Ma'am, we'll need to check his identity. Standard." Harper clutched the baby protectively, eyes wild. "No. No one is taking him from me again." Grayson rose slowly, placing himself between her and the guard. His voice dropped into something cold, intimidating. "We'll cooperate, but not here." And no one touches the child except authorized medical staff. Confirm his safety first. The guard hesitated, intimidated by Grayson's authority. Yes, sir, I'll get a nurse. Harper rocked her son gently, tears falling silently onto the top of his tiny head. He made a small sound, a tired whimper, and pressed closer. It felt like something inside her, long frozen, finally cracked open. Minutes later, a pediatric nurse arrived with warm blankets and a portable scanner. She gave Harper a soft, reassuring smile. We won't take him away. We'll do everything right here. The scan beeped. A second beep followed. Then confirmation flashed across the handheld device. Infant id. Matched. Mother, Harper Ellington. Harper broke down completely. She kissed the baby's forehead, whispering, I missed you. I'm so sorry. I'm here now. I'm here. Grayson exhaled slowly, tension draining from his body. He crouched beside her, rubbing her shoulder in gentle circles. You got him back, he murmured. Harper, you did it. But the moment of relief didn't last. A police officer hurried toward them, his expression urgent. Mr. Vale, we have an update regarding Sloane Winslow. Grayson stiffened. What happened? The officer hesitated, glancing uneasily at Harper. She escaped during transport. Harper's grip tightened around her baby. Grayson's jaw locked. How? We're not sure. But, she left a message. For Harper. It's Formant. The officer handed Grayson a small folded note. He opened it. 3 words stared back at him. You're still mine. Grayson's expression darkened. Harper felt the chill crawl up her spine. Sloane wasn't done. The ride back to the penthouse was silent, except for the baby's soft breathing. Harper held him tightly, her chin tucked above his tiny head, refusing to let go even for a moment. Every streetlight that passed felt like a warning. Every shadow looked like it might suddenly take shape and become Sloane. Grayson remained beside her the entire time, his jaw clenched, one hand on the back of the seat, as if he were physically holding the world together. He wasn't the calm CEO the city admired. He was something colder, sharpened by fury, shaped by the instinct to protect. When they stepped inside the penthouse, security was already waiting. Grayson had called them during the ride back his private team, not police. Men who didn't hesitate. Lock down every entrance, Grayson ordered. Nobody gets access without my permission. Nobody. Harper felt the air tighten around her. Do you really think she would come here? Grayson didn't sugarcoat it. Sloane has nothing left to lose, and people like her become dangerous when cornered. Harper hugged her baby closer. She stole him. She lied to me. She made me think I wasn't even a mother. Why would she keep chasing me? Grayson stepped toward her. Because she's unraveling. And unraveling people want to take someone with them. Harper swallowed, throat tight. That someone would be me. He held her gaze. Not while I'm breathing. Before she could respond, his head of security entered the living room. Sir, we traced her escape route. She ditched the van on 11th Avenue. Cameras picked her up, heading toward the docks. The docks? Harper whispered. Why there? Grayson's eyes narrowed. Because it's one of the few places in Manhattan with blind spots. If she wants to disappear, that's where she'd start. Harper felt a wave of nausea. She can't disappear. Not after everything she's done. She needs to face this. And she will, Grayson said. We're not letting her vanish. Another security guard hurried in, holding a tablet. Sir, we found something else. On the screen was security footage from the hospital lobby. A woman hooded, moving quickly, strode through the entrance just moments before the baby was found. She set the carrier down, looked around frantically, then ran back out into the night. Harper leaned in, eyes wide. That's not Sloane. No, Grayson agreed. But she knows Sloane. Look, she keeps checking behind her like someone's chasing her. Who is she? Harper whispered. Security zoomed in, the image sharpened just enough to show the woman's face clearly. Harper gasped. I know her. She worked at the hospital. She was one of the night shift assistants. She was always kind to me. Grayson nodded slowly. Then I think we found the one person who knows exactly what happened the night your baby was taken. The security chief studied the footage. She didn't abandon him. She was protecting him. She ran because she thought she was being followed. Harper's stomach dropped. Followed by Sloane. And now she's missing, Grayson said. Which means Sloane may have gone after her. Before Harper could respond, her phone buzzed violently in her pocket. Unknown number. Again. A video message. Hands shaking, she pressed play. The shaky footage showed a dim warehouse. A woman tied to a chair, gagged, terrified, the same hospital assistant from the lobby footage. A familiar voice whispered behind the camera. "Harper, come find what's yours, or she dies." Harper's heart stopped. Then the camera tilted just enough to reveal a pair of cold blue eyes. Sloane's eyes. The message ended. Grayson took Harper's hand, voice low and lethal. "We end this tonight." The warehouse at the edge of Red Hook stood like a skeleton against the night sky, its metal siding rattling in the cold wind. Far from Manhattan's glow, the world felt darker, older, as if it had been waiting years for this moment. Grayson's SUV rolled to a stop in the shadows. Harper sat in the back seat, clutching her son, her heart pounding so loudly it drowned out the city itself. "Stay in the car," Grayson said firmly. "My team and I will go in first." Harper shook her head immediately. "No, it's me she wants. She won't reveal anything if I'm not there." "Harper," Grayson warned, voice tight, "it's too dangerous." She held his gaze, trembling but determined. "Everything in my life was taken from me without a choice. Not this time, not tonight. Today." Grayson hesitated just long enough for her to see the fear behind his anger, then nodded once. "You stay behind me." No matter what, his security team fanned out silently, scanning the perimeter. A guard opened the SUV door, helping Harper step out while she kept her baby tucked protectively in her arms. The cold bit into her skin. The warehouse loomed before her, like the mouth of something ancient. A single light glowed inside. Sloane's invitation. Grayson placed a steadying hand on Harper's back as they crossed the threshold. The metal door groaned open. The scent of dust and cold air filled the cavernous interior. Footsteps echoed. Then, a voice drifted from the center of the warehouse. "Well, the happy family arrives." Sloane stepped into the light. Her hair was messy, her eyes ringed with exhaustion, but her posture was eerily calm. A kind of quiet, simmering madness. Behind her, the hospital assistant Sarah sat tied to a chair, shaken but unharmed. Harper tightened her grip on her son. "Let her go, Sloane." Sloane smirked. "You mean my child?" Harper flinched, but Grayson stepped forward. "Cut it out. We know everything about the records. The switch, the lies. It's over." "Over?" Sloane laughed softly. "You think exposing me fixes what she did?" Harper stiffened. "What I did?" Sloane's eyes darkened. "You ruined everything the day you met Callum. Do you know how hard I worked to build our life? And then a woman with nothing waltzes in and takes everything I built?" Harper's voice barely held steady. "You took my baby. I saved your baby." Sloane snapped. "You were never meant to raise a child. You fall apart over everything. Callum knew it. The hospital knew it. You were a threat to that baby. I did what needed to be done." Harper shook her head, tears filling her eyes. "You stole him because your own baby didn't survive. It's never should." The words hit like a slap. Sloane's facade cracked. He was mine. He was supposed to be mine. Everything was supposed to be perfect. Grayson moved in front of Harper. "Give yourself up, Sloane. This ends now." Sloane looked at Harper's baby, her expression twisting with something desperate and dangerous. "Give him to me," she whispered. "Harper, give him back. He was safer with me." Harper's arms tightened instinctively. "He is my son." Sloane took a step forward. Security tensed. Grayson raised a warning hand. "Sloane, stop." But Sloane's eyes were locked on Harper, wild, pleading, broken. "Just give him back," she murmured. "Please, he was the last piece I had left." Harper's heart broke, not with sympathy, but with the realization that Sloane was truly gone, swallowed by the lies she created. "I'm sorry," Harper said softly, "but he was never yours." Sloane froze. And then, a police siren wailed in the distance. Sloane's head whipped toward the sound. Her voice shattered. "You called them." Grayson stepped forward. "It's over." Sloane inhaled sharply, then turned and bolted deeper into the warehouse. "Go," Grayson commanded his team. The guards sprinted after her. Harper clutched her son, chest heaving. Grayson grabbed her hand. "Stay with me." But from somewhere inside the warehouse, a shout erupted. "She's heading for the river." Harper's blood ran cold. Sloane's last escape route, and her last chance to destroy everything. The cold wind from the East River cut through the night as Harper, holding her son close, hurried after Grayson and the security team. The warehouse opened into a narrow walkway overlooking the water-rusted railings, creaking boards, and the echo of distant sirens bouncing off the dark waves. Up ahead, Sloane stumbled along the edge, her silhouette lurching unevenly in the dim glow of street lamps. She seemed smaller now, her once perfect posture defeated, her arms wrapped around herself as if the lies she carried were finally too heavy to bear. "Stop!" Grayson called out, his voice echoed through the emptiness. Sloane turned her head sharply. Even from a distance, Harper could see her pale, panicked eyes. "Stay back," Sloane cried. "Just leave me alone." Harper stood behind Grayson, clutching her son's small body protectively. The baby whimpered softly, sensing the tension in her arms. Grayson stepped forward slowly. "Sloane, there's nowhere to go. Let them help you." "Help?" Sloane let out a broken laugh. "No one ever helps me. They judge me. They whisper behind my back. They wait for me to fall. But I'm not giving them the satisfaction." "Sloane," Harper said gently, stepping out from behind Grayson. "You don't have to keep running." Sloane's gaze snapped to her. "Don't pretend to care about me, Harper. You took everything from me." Harper shook her head. "You're the one who took everything. My memories, my child, my life. But I'm not here to punish you. I just want this to stop." Sloane's breath hitched, her shoulders shaking. For a moment, the bitterness in her face softened, revealing a frightened, exhausted woman beneath the cruelty. "I never wanted to hurt you," Sloane whispered. I couldn't let him go. He was all I had left." End quote. "That wasn't your burden to carry," Harper said quietly. Behind them, the flashing red lights grew brighter as officers approached the dock. Sloane's eyes widened in fear. "They'll tear me apart," she whispered. "The press, the police, everyone." "You can still face the truth with dignity," Harper said. "You can still stop this from getting worse." Sloane's eyes dropped to the baby resting against Harper's chest. A soft, longing expression flickered in her eyes, brief, hollow, aching. "He was never mine," she murmured. "I knew that. Deep down, I always knew." Harper held her son closer. "Then let him be safe now." Sloane closed her eyes. A single tear slid down her cheek, quiet, defeated. She turned toward the railing. Grayson yelled, "Sloane, don't." But Sloane didn't jump or lunge or run. She simply placed her hands on the cold railing and waited as officers approached. When they gently took her by the arms, she didn't resist. Harper watched silently as they led Sloane away. Something inside her loosened, like a knot that had been pulling for years. It wasn't triumph. It wasn't satisfaction. It was release. Grayson returned to her side, his voice soft. "It's over." But Harper shook her head slightly, adjusting her son in her arms. "No, not over, just beginning. For him, for me." Grayson placed a steady hand on Harper's back. "Then we begin together." End quote. Harper looked out over the water, dark, endless, cold, and then at her son's sleepy face. The world finally felt like it was opening instead of closing. But the moment of peace didn't last. One of the officers jogged toward them, breathless. "Mr. Vale, Miss Ellington, there's something you need to know right now." Harper tensed. "What is it?" The officer hesitated, eyes shifting toward the baby in her arms. "We found another file, one Sloane hid, even from Callum. Thanks for watching." Grayson's expression darkened. "About what?" The officer swallowed. "About the father." Harper's heart lurched the moment the officer mentioned the father. She instinctively pressed her son closer, as if shielding him from a truth she wasn't ready to hear. The night air felt sharper, colder, almost metallic against her skin. Grayson stepped forward first, voice low and steady. "What file?" The officer opened a waterproof envelope and handed him a folded sheet. "We found this hidden in a false bottom inside Sloane's storage locker at the docks. It's dated 2 years ago." Grayson unfolded the document. His eyes scanned the page, and for the first time since Harper met him, she watched his confidence waver just barely, but enough to make her chest tighten. "What is it?" Harper whispered. Grayson took a breath, then handed her the paper carefully, as if it were something fragile, something that might break her if presented too suddenly. Harper held the page with trembling hands. At the top, it read, "Confidential DNA report, private request, paternity analysis." Below it, Paternal match, 99.97%. Father, Grayson Vale. Child, infant, male, Harper Ellington. The world tilted. Her breath hitched painfully. No, this can't be right. Grayson, this can't. He stepped toward her slowly, eyes full of something she had never seen there so clearly before: fear, hope, disbelief, and a tenderness he normally kept locked behind a fortress. Harper, he said softly, I didn't know. I swear to you, I had no idea. Her voice cracked. How could you not know? We never. We didn't, he said quickly. Not the way you're thinking. Harper blinked, confused and overwhelmed. Grayson exhaled. Harper, before Callum, before everything. Years ago, when we were kids in the system together, you remember how we used to get separated? How they moved us around? Harper's throat tightened. Memories flickered, snapshots of two children in worn-out sneakers, huddled in a hallway during a blackout, sharing stolen crackers and whispered promises they were too young to keep. She whispered, trembling, You were that boy? Grayson nodded. The one you pulled out of that fight. The one you shared your only blanket with. The one you said mattered when nobody else cared. Harper's breath froze. I didn't know it was you, she whispered. Not until now. Grayson swallowed hard. The state kept terrible records, so did the system. And when we grew up, we changed so much we didn't recognize each other. But Sloane did. She found those records when she dug into my past. She found the truth before either of us ever knew. Harper shook her head slowly. But, the baby. How? The officer cleared his throat gently. Miss Ellington, the date on this report is earlier than your hospitalization. It appears the father test was done using stored genetic samples, blood drawn during routine checkups when you were younger. It wasn't a test done after conception. Grayson added quietly, Sloane used our childhood files. She knew I had been in the same system you were. And she must have suspected something. Harper pressed a hand to her mouth, overwhelmed. Then suddenly peace. Not fear. Not panic. Just clarity. She looked down at her son, his tiny features, soft dark hair, the curve of his cheek, then back at Grayson. And for the first time, she saw the resemblance. Soft. Subtle. But real. The truth didn't feel like a burden. It felt like something that had been waiting quietly all along to be found. Harper stepped closer to Grayson. You're his father. Grayson's voice broke, barely audible. If you want me to be, it's Dom's 2-3. Harper's eyes filled, but this time with something warm, something healing. I don't want you to be anything except honest. And here, truly here. He nodded slowly. Then that's who I'll be. Their son stirred softly, tiny hand curling around Harper's collar. She exhaled, a long, trembling breath. The storm was finally passing. But just as Grayson reached for her hand, Harper's phone buzzed with a new notification. A message from an unknown sender. Only 5 words. This story isn't over yet. So, my dear friends, if you're still here, it means this story reached you somewhere deeper than the surface. Maybe because life has bruised you in places no one else can see. Maybe because, like Harper, you've had moments where you thought you weren't strong enough, yet somehow you kept going. That's the beauty of being human. We break, but we also rise. The Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." And Harper's journey reminds us of exactly that. The obstacles didn't destroy her. They shaped her into someone braver, someone whole. If there's one message you take with you tonight, let it be this. You are allowed to start again. You deserve truth. You deserve safety. You deserve love that doesn't ask you to shrink. Healing isn't loud, it's choosing. Every day, to not give your past the power to define your future. If this story touched you, even a little, then stay with us. Like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. Because somewhere out there, another heart is waiting for a story like this one, and you might be the person who helps them find it.